July 19, 1947, 10:37 a.m. This was the exact moment that altered the course of Myanmar's history forever, a moment that left an entire nation in tears and a wound that time could never truly heal. Why is it that we can never forget General Aung San and the fallen heroes? In this video, we will look back at the historical background of Martyrs' Day, uncovering the full story and the real events that took place behind the scenes on that fateful day. On Saturday, July 19, 1947, at 10:37 a.m., a major national assassination took place at the Secretariat. Ministers of the AFPFL interim government, led by national leader General Aung San, were assassinated while holding a meeting dedicated to achieving complete liberation from colonial rule and rebuilding post-war Myanmar. On that day, the weather in Yangon was gloomy, the sky had been overcast and dark since dawn. No distinct cloud formations were visible, the atmosphere was hazy and indistinct, resembling a vast sea shrouded in mist. Looking at the rain, it appeared like a vast sea veiled in mist, fine and gauzy. It never ceased completely, instead, it would alternate between a gentle drizzle and a heavy downpour, lingering on in a dreary, unsettled manner, wrote Syed Dagan Tariar. Around 10 a.m., General Aung San left his Tower Lane residence in a small black car, bearing the license plate RA 2874, accompanied by his personal assistant, PA, Captain Hun Hla, to attend a ministerial meeting at the Secretariat. At approximately 10:10 a.m., the general's car pulled up to the foot of the central staircase of the Secretariat, and he proceeded upstairs to his office, where the meeting was to be held, along with Captain Hun Hla. On that particular day, seeing the General Aung San dressed in traditional Burmese style, wearing a longi in the golden-yellow hue of a ceremonial offering bowl, a Mandalay silk jacket the color of Thanica, and white-strapped aeroplane sandals, rather than his usual uniform, Oba Gayam, teased him by calling out, "General, you look really dashing like this." All government ministers had gathered for a meeting in the Defense Minister's office, with the exception of Saw San Po Thin, the Minister of Transport, who was touring the Irrawaddy Delta, O Kyo Nyin, the Minister of Home Affairs, who was still en route back from England, and O Tin Tut, a minister without portfolio. Chief Clerk O Ka, Assistant Secretary O Tin On, and Cabinet Secretary O Shu Bo were busy moving back and forth, gathering the necessary documents and files for the meeting and transporting them, one by one, into the meeting room. Subsequently, the general and his aide, Major entered the meeting room. Major placed the necessary files and documents for the general at the head of the table. Once the general had taken his seat, left the meeting room and returned to his own office, where he relaxed at ease. The attendees at the meeting that day were 1. General Aung San, Deputy Chairman, Departments of Defense and Foreign Affairs. 2. Thaking Maya, Department of Finance and Revenue. 3. Oba Win, Departments of Commerce and Supplies. 4. Doc Obho, Department of Information. 5. Abdul Razak, Departments of Education and National Planning. 6. Man Ba Kine, Department of Industry and Labor. 7. Say Ofer of Mong Porn, Saw Sam Hun, Department of Frontier Areas. 8. Oba Gan, Department of Rehabilitation. 9. Purebwe O Maya, Department of Agriculture. 10. O Aung San Y, Department of Civil Service. 11. O On Mong, Deputy Secretary, Department of Transport and Communications. On Maung was present to make necessary presentations and provide responses regarding the Department of Communications and Transport at the meeting, as the responsible minister, Saw San Po Thin, was away on a trip and unable to attend. Previously, meetings of the ministers, members of the Governor's Executive Council, were typically presided over and personally conducted by the governor. Following the signing of the Aung San Attlee Agreement, which guaranteed independence for Burma and granted the AFFL-led Governor's Executive Council the authority to operate with a degree of autonomy akin to an interim government, the governor himself ceased attending meetings from around January 1947. Instead, the council's deputy chairman, General Aung San, presided over the proceedings. The meeting took place in General Aung San's office, a spacious hall accessible via 3 entrances, flanked by the office of Secretary O Shu Bo on the left and that of the General's aide-de-camp, Bo Tun Hla, on the right. The General's work desk was situated in the northeast corner of the room, while large tables used for ministerial meetings were arranged along the southern wall. At the venue where the ministers' meeting is held, 3 long tables are arranged in a C shape, with one at the head and one along each side. The table at the head measures approximately 10 feet in length and 3 feet in width, while the 2 tables along the sides are each about 18 feet long and 3 feet wide. At the meeting that day, the general sat at the center of the head table. Seated in order to his right were Thaking Maya Dedok O Bho, O Rozok, O Ba Win, and Man Ba Kine, while O Ba Gan O Aung San Y Purebwe U Maya, and Sao Sam Hun, the Sorbwa of Mongporn, were seated to his left. O Shu Bo, the secretary to the Executive Council, was positioned at the head table to the general's left, ready to locate and provide any documents or files the general might require. The meeting commenced at 10:15 a.m. as scheduled, with discussions proceeding on important matters relevant to the various ministries. As the agenda moved forward, around 10:30 a.m., when it was time to discuss issues concerning the Department of Transport and Communications, Deputy Secretary, ICS, On Maung arrived in the meeting hall and took a seat next to Thaking Maya at the head of the table on the right. At approximately 10:10 a.m., following the words "May my men succeed," a small green jeep shot out from the compound of O Sores residence beside Inya Lake and headed toward the inner office building. The jeep was driven by Suka, one of O Sores' henchmen, while fellow associates Sain Ji, Mong So, Yang Ji Ang, and Det Nin rode along, armed and ready with Tommy guns and Sten guns. A small green jeep, bearing the license plate RC-1814 and carrying 4 men in military uniforms adorned with the lion insignia of the 12th Division and clad in raincoats, sped along the rain-swept main road. The jeep was traveling from west to east along Montgomery Road, now Bogyoke Aung San Road, passing the clock tower at the end of Pansadon Street. Upon reaching Sparks Street, now Bo Aung Kyo Road, the vehicle turned right. It then crossed Fraser Road, now Anarata Road, and, upon arriving at the southern gate of the Secretariat, slowed down and steered left to enter the compound. Since it was around 10:30 a.m., the start of office hours, there was a steady stream of vehicles belonging to officials of various ranks entering, so the car had to wait briefly at the gate. Then, slowly turning the steering wheel, the vehicle drove under the large rear portico, turned toward the Defense Department, and came to a halt at the southwest corner. Immediately, Sain Ji, Mong So, Yang Ji Ang, and Det Nin, wearing canvas patrol shoes and holding a Sten gun and 3 Tommy guns at the ready, leaped from the vehicle and rushed into the Secretariat building. Thuka kept the car engine running while waiting behind. Armed with guns, Sain Ji, Mong So, Yang Ji Ang, and Det Nin walked from the southern end of the Secretariat towards the General's office. They shoved aside Minute Say, who was standing guard at the entrance, and stepped through the northernmost doorway into the room where the ministers were holding a meeting. At 10:37 a.m., Det Nin, who came in from the front, shouted "Hey!" and began shooting at the general with a tom gun in his hand. At the same time, the general, who was sitting at the head of the table, tried to say something to the people who had come in, waving his hand from his chair, but it was too late. The assassin's bullets caused the general to fall backwards, and both the man and the chair collapsed. Immediately afterwards, the gunmen also fired at the ministers seated to the general's right, before sweeping their weapons toward the left. Ministers Bogyoke Aung San and Secretary O Shu Bo managed to escape unharmed. The moment the lead assassin opened fire on the general, they leapt out through a window at the rear of the room. Minister Oba Gan immediately grabbed the arm of Aung San, who was beside him, and pulled him down to the floor, thereby escaping death. Meanwhile, the other ministers were struck by gunfire one after another and collapsed in heaps. Then, the assassins, who had been firing while standing, dropped to their knees and unleashed a barrage of shots with unrestrained intensity. Then, the assassins, who had been firing while standing, dropped to their knees and continued to shoot to their heart's content. Only after they had finished firing did they cease shooting and rush toward the staircase. Just then, Ko Hao, the bodyguard of Minister O Rozok, emerged from the room at the top of the stairs. The assassins raked him with a burst of Sten gun fire and, shouting, "Hey, bystanders, get out of the way, get downstairs," they dashed furiously down the stairs. They got into the car, which Suka had already started and kept waiting beneath the large portico, and drove out through the main exit onto Spark Street, now Bo Ang Kyo Road. Turning left, they sped westward along Dalhousie Street, now Mahabandula Road, and made their escape without hindrance. Believing that the AFPFL government would only collapse if its entire leadership were assassinated, Osor dispatched a subordinate named Ba Nyant to assassinate Thaking Nu, the AFPFL vice president and president of the Constituent Assembly. However, Thaking Nu escaped the assassination attempt because he did not report to his office that day. After assassins had gunned down General Aung San and the other leaders, Captain Hun Hla, who was the first to enter the room, lifted the general up from where he had fallen. Upon doing so, he believed the general had sustained 2 or 3 wounds to his chest. However, after General Aung San and the other leaders were assassinated, Bo Hun Hla, who was the first to enter the room, helped the general up from where he had fallen. Upon noticing wounds on his chest, he believed the general had sustained about 2 or 3 injuries there. However, after the general was transported to Yangon General Hospital, senior doctors conducted a thorough examination and discovered exactly 13 gunshot wounds on his body. Secretary O Shu Bo, who had jumped from the window alongside Bogyoke Aung San, remained completely unharmed. Aung San, who had fallen face down onto the floor, also escaped injury, whereas Oba Gan sustained superficial grazing wounds, one on his left flank and another on the ring finger of his right hand. In fact, Oba Gan had not originally intended to attend the meeting that day. He had just returned from a trip to Hinthada district and was feeling slightly unwell due to a cold. However, he made the effort to attend because he believed it was necessary to urgently present and report a piece of important, breaking news. One significant piece of news Oba Gan obtained was that Galan Osor was the culprit behind the disappearance of over 200 Bren guns from the Botatong Base Ordnance Depot, BOC, a military supply storage unit, during the last week of the previous June. Inside that meeting room on July 19, the brightest minds and the strongest hearts of our nation were gathered, drafting the blueprint of a free Myanmar. In a hail of gunfire, 9 lives were stolen. Let us remember the heroes who paid the ultimate price for our freedom. General Aung San, Deputy Chairman, Departments of Defense and Foreign Affairs, the de facto leader, and the man who united a divided nation. He was the driving force behind our impending independence, assassinated at the young age of just 32. Sao San Hun Sad Smiley, the Seofa of Mongpon and the Minister of Frontier Areas. As a prominent Shan leader, his presence in that room represented the unbreakable bond between the ethnic regions and the mainland. Thaking Maya, the Minister of Finance. A brilliant legal mind and a veteran wartime leader who was tasked with building the economic foundation of our new republic. Obho, the Minister of Information. A beloved writer, journalist, and cultural leader who dedicated his life to giving the people a voice. Rozok, the Minister of Education and National Planning. A devout Muslim and an inspiring educator who believed that unity and education were the ultimate keys to a free nation. Oba Win, the Minister of Supply and Trade, the elder brother of Bogyoke Aung San. He stood fiercely by the cause, making the ultimate sacrifice alongside his younger brother. Man Ba Kaing, the Minister of Industry and Labour. A dedicated Karen leader who fought tirelessly to ensure the rights of working-class citizens were woven into the fabric of independent Myanmar. On Mong, the Deputy Secretary of the Ministry of Transport, a brilliant administrator who was only in the room that morning to deliver a critical report to the cabinet. Ko Tui, a brave, 18-year-old cabinet bodyguard. He didn't die inside the room, he was cut down outside while heroically trying to stop the assassins from escaping. The police had long been aware of Galan Osor's activities. Furthermore, Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Han, a security officer from Army headquarters living directly opposite Osor's house, grew suspicious of Osor's murderous activities. He frequently observed Osor and 4 or 5 associates busily engaged in a boat on Inya Lake at night using military binoculars, and the governor had already been informed of this intelligence on July 18 through his secretary, Philip Nash. Furthermore, on the day of the assassination, a small jeep carrying 5 people sped into Osor's compound. Upon encountering Osor at the entrance, they shouted, "Success! Success!" while pumping their fists in the air, a scene witnessed firsthand by Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Hand, who subsequently reported the incident to the CID. Consequently, that afternoon, police detectives and the anti-insurgent force conducted a joint search of Osor's residence by Inya Lake. Although Mokyo Ye Mongai, one of Osor's henchmen, attempted to put up an armed resistance, Osor, realizing the disparity in strength, intervened in time, resulting in the capture of the entire group. Authorities searched the house and the nearby Inya Lake, seizing documents, rubber stamps reading Osor Prime Minister, which had been made only recently, and a portion of the arms and ammunition that had gone missing from the British Army. Regarding the tragic assassination that befell Myanmar, various reports subsequently emerged, based on revelations made by Bo Tun Hla, a close aide to the general, concerning the disappearance of 200 machine guns. When concerns regarding the security situation mounted, Purebwe Omaya, who had assumed the duties of the Ministry of Home Affairs while Minister Okyo Nyan was away in London, detached a squad from the Burma Army and stationed it in ambush at the entrance to the Secretariat without the general's knowledge. The chain of events that marked the onset of Myanmar's misfortune began when a soldier from that specific squad stepped out to attend to a personal matter and was spotted by a general who was arriving for work. Consequently, the general ordered Omaya to withdraw the squad, meaning the security ambush unit was pulled out just days before the assassination took place. Witnessing the events that unfolded, stemming from General Aung San's conviction that no one would assassinate him, his disdain for pomp and ostentation, and his sincere desire to live a simple, unencumbered life, fills one with a sense of bitter frustration. One is left wondering if this was simply the cruel destiny of Myanmar and its people. Gritting my teeth and clicking my tongue in dismay, I feel a desperate urge to cry out, "Oh, General, you who believed you had no enemies, look at what has come to pass." The reason behind the assassination attempt on these national leaders was an earlier incident occurring a few months before the London conference, in which two men in khaki uniforms shot at Aung San. Although he survived, he was wounded by a bullet that grazed his eyebrow. This assassination attempt was orchestrated by Bo Ne Win and Bo Aung Ji. Oh Maya Hluring, former editor of Fateful War magazine, drove the vehicle, while Yangon Ba Sway, who was also in the car, carried out the shooting. The gun handed to Yangon Ba Sway to carry out the shooting belonged to Battalion Commander Ne Win. At that time, Ne Win held only the rank of Battalion Commander. It is often said that Aung San orchestrated the assassination of General Aung San and other top leaders in retaliation, believing the general and the People's Volunteer Organization, PVO, to be responsible for that earlier incident. In reality, however, this major assassination plot was driven by far more profound motives. Aung San did not assassinate General Aung San and his colleagues simply out of personal enmity. Rather, he harbored deep, festering resentment over the fact that General Aung San, whom he had once dismissed as merely a young lad, had risen to become the nation's supreme leader, thereby leaving no room on the political stage for seasoned political opportunists like himself. Believing that he could only seize power by eliminating all AFPFL leaders, Aung San plotted to assassinate not only the party's leaders in Yangon but also those in the provinces. To this end, he had hidden stolen arms and ammunition, acquired in collusion with British authorities, in Inya Lake near his home, while also distributing a portion of the weapons to members of his patriotic party. Aung San's ability to hatch such a grand scheme was solely due to the instigation and encouragement of the British imperialists. British conservative politicians, as well as military and civilian figures, deeply resented the fact that their former adversary, General Aung San, and the AFFL were in power. Therefore, prior to Myanmar gaining independence, they conspired with figures like Gallen Aung San to overthrow the AFPFL government and keep Myanmar within the Dominion status. Though decades have passed since our leaders physically left us, the spirit, patriotism, and loyalty they held for the nation remain alive in the hearts of the people to this day. To continue walking toward the free and just society they envisioned is now the responsibility of the new generation. If you value these historical accounts, please give this video a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch our upcoming historical stories. With deepest respect and honor to our fallen martyrs, may you all find peace.